Welcome, everyone, to the Human Intelligence Movement Virtual Summit. It is so great to see so many familiar faces, and we are thrilled to come together to really talk about how we can support students to succeed and thrive in an AI world powered with all of their human potential. I'm Michelle Ament, and I am your host today, and I am so excited to get this party started. Oh my goodness. I have to start over. I'm so excited to get this party. Who is ready for this amazing event? Fantastic. I'm seeing some excited faces and we are ready to go. So today with our Human Intelligence Summit, we've got a great lineup of speakers. We are going to hear from two keynoters, Travis Allen and Dr. Saba Kidwai, and we have an amazing interactive think tank panel. We are bringing together some of the most thought-provoking leaders in the space, ready with students, educators, and innovators, ready to really think about how, as a movement, we can transform the future of education. So to get things started, I've got a question for you. What makes you uniquely human? Here's what I'd like to do is figure out who's in the space. Go ahead and introduce yourself in the chat and share with us what makes you uniquely human. It's great to see so many people coming together from all over the world. We've got people from India, we've got people from Mexico, we've got people from the United States, we've got people from just every state. It looks like coming in Pennsylvania. I'm seeing Minnesota, all kinds of places, and lots of things that make us uniquely human, whether it is our humor, whether it is our way of thinking, our empathetic listening, our smiles. One of the things with this movement is that we really want you to have an opportunity to connect with others from around the world. So go ahead and say hi to someone, maybe give them a heart or a thumbs up, let them know that you see them in the space. Well, the mission of the Human Intelligence Movement is really to ensure that all students have the human skills they need to thrive and succeed in an AI world. And when we look at this list of what makes us uniquely human, This is really what we're talking about when we think about what are those human skills that in a world of AI, we need to be focused on preparing our students with. So thanks everyone for sharing, introducing yourself and sharing a little bit about what makes you uniquely human. I am really excited today to introduce our first keynote speaker. So first, we're going to hear from Travis Allen. Travis is the founder and CEO of ProSolve. He's also the co-president of the Human Intelligence Movement. And Travis is passionate about advocating for human potential in an AI world and really thinking about what our school system needs to do to be transformed to support students in an AI era. I am really excited to introduce Travis, both as a colleague, a mentor, and a friend. So I'm going to turn it over, Travis, to you.
All right, I had to find the unmute button. There we go. Hopefully you guys can hear me and see my screen. Yes? Okay, all right. Well, I am really excited to kick us off here. We're going to be using the chat feature throughout this presentation. Feel free to use the React modes as well. Give feedback as we're going through this content, this presentation. And I really just wanted to kind of kick things off by introducing a little bit about myself. As it was mentioned, my name is Travis. I have two roles. I am the founder and CEO of ProSolve, a curriculum company focused on building human skills in education. But I'm also serving as the co-president with Michelle for this human intelligence movement. And today I want to talk about what it means to build human intelligence for an AI world and what that looks like, feels like. And what I want you to do is I want you to go to your chat, the chat for the room right now, and I want you to take 10 seconds to basically answer this simple question. I want you to be brutally honest. Tell us, why do we go to school? What's the point? Why do we spend billions of dollars bringing people together to have come together and do this thing we call school? So take just 20 seconds, post your answer in the chat. To learn to think, to grow, to help us live in this world, socialization, social relationships, social engagement, to learn how to make friends, to prepare us for life, living, socialization, building better communities. Twenty seconds is a short time. Help us find our place in the world. So lots of reasons on why we go to school, right? It's the law, we have to, we don't have a choice, it's for those social skills. We saw during COVID just how important school played a role, not necessarily in the academic learning, but just the social experience that people had in that moment. So for this kickoff of this movement and this conversation, I want us to go on a journey through time. I want us to think about, what did it mean to be career ready throughout the ages? And I want to talk about the past, the present, and the future. So when I think about the past, I think of, for most of human history, what did the workforce need? And as we look at that, for most of human history, we were an agricultural industry. Almost everybody, all the occupations almost, were some sort of thing related to food. Things like 85% of global workforce was in agriculture. Things like blacksmiths, going to war, hunting, gathering, all those things. That was the workforce. And with that, we built an education system that was personalized apprenticeships and experiential, right? You learn by going into the blacksmith shop and learning by doing. It was very hands-on, and that apprenticeship was huge. Now, it had lots of limitations. It was not scalable, and you had a lot of wealth gap, and you had people who were born into it and those that were not, right? But all of this, for most of human history, I would argue, the thing you needed to survive in the workforce was physical labor. The currency was trading your physical energy for some sort of living wage or food. Then something happened, and we created machines to do this for us, right? The industrial age revolution happened. And what happened is these machines devalued physical labor in that workforce, ushering us into what I would call the present that we live in today, which began with the industrial age in 1760. And so this was a crucial and painful transitionary time in history as we went from physical labor to something new that the workforce needed. If you look at the occupations that have existed since 1760s, 1 in 3 jobs were manufacturing jobs, and less than 2% of people remained in agriculture or farming. And so the workplace shifted dramatically, and we needed a new education system to meet the demands of that workforce. So we mirrored the industrial age, and we created an education system that was focused on building consistent humans who were literate and obedient, could follow a process, could follow the rules, could read, could do things like this. And it worked tremendously well for a long time. We were able to build up our students and prepare them for that industrial age workforce. And I would argue that the thing you needed to survive in the present workforce is knowledge. Right? We have a saying, knowledge is power. And so in this knowledge era, right, that was the goal. If you just get a 4-year college degree, we're guaranteed success in the workforce. Unfortunately, it doesn't quite feel like that anymore. Because just like we created machines to do the physical labor for us, we've now created machines to do the knowledge for us. And I believe at our core, this is why it's such a painful time to be in education or to be in the workforce right now. It's also an exciting time because we have created these machines that, just like the industrial age, are doing that for us. Specifically, the internet and artificial intelligence as kind of the catalyst for what we're experiencing. And I want to just play a quick video for you that shows ChatGPT's latest announcement of some of their features that they deployed about a week ago, just to get our thinking about what's possible with AI and where it's going.
GPT. Hey, ChatGPT.
Hello there. How's it going?
It's going really well. Today, I'd really like your help solving a math problem.
I'm all ears. What math problem can I help you tackle today?
So I'm going to write down a linear equation on a sheet of paper and I'll show you. And then I'd love your help working me through it. But importantly, don't tell me the solution, just help give me hints along the way.
Got it. Okay, I see it.
No, I didn't show you yet. Just give me help along the way. 1 second.
Whoops, I got too excited. I'm ready when you are.
So, ChatGPT, what equation did I write down there?
Ah, I see it now. You wrote down 3x plus 1 equals 4.
Yep,
Let's work-
exactly. So what's the first step I should take to try to solve this?
The first step is to get all the terms with x on one side and the constants on the other side. So what do you think we should do with that plus 1?
Okay.
I'll go ahead and stop it there.
Travis, it looks like people weren't seeing the video. I got a couple of comments that.
Okay, I'm going to try to.
That's okay. I will move my presentation here.
Okay, I'm going to try to subtract 1 from both sides, and then I'll see what I get.
In front of my screen. I just got to.
Great idea.
There we go. Okay, if you didn't see the video, that's fine. It showed some of the new features of ChatGPT. A lot of you guys have seen this kind of stuff that's happening right now, but here's what I want us to think about when it comes to the technology of where it's at today. Just like when the internet came out, right? What we mostly did is we substituted what we are already doing, but it's done a little bit more efficiently, right? So when the internet came out, it was like, oh, instead of mailing in a letter,
subtract 1 from both sides, and then I'll see what I get.
Video audio is playing.
Great idea. Perfect. Now, what do you get when you subtract 1 from both sides?
Here we go. So when you think about what I was saying was, when we first started, we were snail mailing things, and now we have Gmail, and it replaced it. But it took several years for us to evolve beyond that, right? The whole point of technology is to create things that were otherwise impossible prior to that technology existing. So we went from email to then instant chat message to then FaceTime to now the metaverse. So what are we going to see evolve with artificial intelligence? Right now, it's doing a lot of substituting. But when our kids go to the workforce 10 years from now, what is that technology going to be doing and capable of? And above all else, will we be replaced by teachers? Will teachers be replaced by teachers? I want you guys to answer this question in the chat while I continue to go. Do you think that where we're going, this will replace the purpose of our teachers? And when we think about this, this is something that a lot of jobs and a lot of groups are contemplating and questioning right now. And really, it comes down to, well, what is a teacher doing, right? There are some teachers that might be replaced by AI if all we're doing is knowledge dissemination, right? The era of knowledge teaching, I would say, is being replaced. What the McKinsey Global Institute reported is that 85 million jobs will be displaced across the globe just by 2027 alone because of technology. Now, on the flip side, though, we're seeing 97 million new jobs coming to existence. Is it still sharing my screen? Okay, it switched on me, but as long as keep sharing it. So what we're saying is, well, no, you might not be replaced by AI, but most likely you will be replaced by a teacher who uses AI. And so that's what we have to think about as we prepare students for where they're going and the workforce that they're walking into. So when we think about the future, what will the jobs look like and what do we need to build to prepare our students for now a digital age workforce? And what we're seeing is, I want to ask this question to the chat actually, if whatever role you play, whether you are a teacher, administrator, or you work for a company, answer the question, why won't you be replaced by AI? What is so unique about what you're bringing to the table that you are going to be relevant even as this AI technology expands and grows? So feel free to post your your message in the chat room here. I will share one of my beliefs about artificial intelligence here. AI has an answer to everything. If you ask it anything, it has an answer, right? So the question, the thing that we have to ask ourselves is, what is the point of me being on this call with you right now? What's the point of me speaking? Well, I might not have all the answers. In fact, I might have none of the answers. But I think what's so crucial is, what are the questions that we're going to go ask? How can we inspire each other? How can we inspire our students to want to ask the questions that need to be asked? I think that is what makes me uniquely human. That is why AI will not replace me as long as I continue to have that be my focus. Now, based on some of the things that you guys have posted in chat here, when we think about the workforce and the occupations of the future, the World Economic Forum just posted the top 10 skills on the rise right now. And it shows that 75% of employers are prioritizing hiring for human skills right now. Things like creative thinking, analytical thinking, right? Having kids think for themselves, be creative, be adaptable, have their resilience, all these things, being curious about the world around them are so key to their success as they go forward. Are we building educational institutions that are fostering these skills every single day that our students walk into that classroom? And I'd love to have a debate in this room with you all today as we think about this. So going back through this timeline, if we went from physical labor being our form of currency to now knowledge, to now the future, I would argue, is human skills. What makes us us? What makes us uniquely human? We have to stop training our kids to compete against artificial intelligence. That is a losing battle. AI will always be better than me at a 5-paragraph essay. And so as we think about this, everything at our foundation we know about schools and the way we learn to some degree has to change because we are no longer living in the knowledge era. There are many challenges that face us there. And like I said, I want to have a debate in this room. If we can agree for a moment that human skills are the most important skills to be successful, then are generations of kids today getting better or worse at their ability to their human skills, think critically, problem solvers, and so on. I want you to post in the chat, tell me, are they getting better or worse, and why? Why are they getting better or worse? I'll give you guys a moment to do this. You can also use the react thumbs up, thumbs down button probably, just to show where you stand on it. We're getting worse. Why are we getting worse? Tell me why to make a case one way or the other. Worse because they have fewer interactions with other humans, depends on context, in personal or virtual. I agree. I've definitely seen a divide there. They're too reliant on tech, their social skills, screen isolation. They're getting worse. Private schools are doing okay, though. Worse, teachers are not judging on how well their students can critically think. They don't no idea how to engage or manage. COVID really impacted them on doing so. Fewer social skills. So again, I'm sensing a trend here, right? That overall there are elements where kids are getting better, but we are seeing a decline. And what's interesting is we're now saying that this skill is more important than ever, but we're also seeing it on the decline as a society. I think that is a major red flag, one that we need to sound the alarm on and be discussing. I'm going to make the case today that I also think human skills are declining. Right here is the average IQ of Americans. It's called the Flynn effect. We are constantly getting smarter as a species. That's great news. For 40 years, we're getting smarter. But when you compare that to the creative quotient test, you can see that we were on the incline, then something happened in the 90s and we started going on the decline. Well, what happened in the 90s? The internet. The internet was invented to solve our problems for us, and it did a phenomenal job at the expense of our kids thinking critically, solving problems, and being independent and having those social skills, right? So this was a big part of what we felt. And at the core of it, it has created challenges that both the students themselves and the schools face in their journey to be ready for this new digital era workforce. What I want to share with you today is some of my biggest observations. We can't fix the problem if we don't first identify what those problems are and where they come from. So let's talk about our students and how our students are doing in education right now. I'm going to start with some stats here. Right now, we've got 9%. In the last 4 years, we've seen a 9% unenrollment into the educational institutions altogether, right? That is staggering. Over the last 20 years, it's been less than like 1% up until these last 4 years. We see a doubling of truancy. This was a new study that just came out that said 60% of employers admitted to firing a recently hired Gen Z because they did not have the human skills necessary to work in that job. That is alarming. That is compared to 20 to 30% with the millennial generation entering the workforce. 53% of students feel school is not relevant. We see an increase in anxiety and depression right now. 3 core reasons that I want to share with you on why I think some of these things exist and are happening. First and foremost, the lack of self-efficacy. We are seeing a decline in grit, resilience, independent problem solving, and the self-efficacy, the belief that I matter. And I think this goes beyond just education. For the last 20 years, we have shifted to a helicopter parenting and teaching strategies. We do everything for our kids, right? This cartoon sums it up. The parents are yelling at the child back in 1969, explain these bad grades. Not healthy to do that, besides the point. Now the parents are yelling at the teacher, explain these bad grades. There has been a cultural shift in what our role is as parents and how we show up for our kids. We do everything for them, right? We chauffeur them around, we schedule them all up and down to do things, and we really just don't let them sit in the boredom sometimes, do what it takes to build that creativity and that curiosity. I have a fear, I don't think there's a name for this phobia, but it's parents with too much free time. Because that is where it's at, right? When we start to do everything for our kids, I think it comes at a cost to them. And I got to bring Morpheus into this. What if I told you parents are not supposed to protect their children from the world, but to prepare them for it? We've got to shift our thinking here. And the example I want to give you is, there are 3 levels to helicopter parenting when I think about it, right? I'm going to use the example of tying my shoes. I found out that I tie my shoes the wrong way. I do the two bunny method system. It comes undone all the time, super inefficient. And 3 ways to tie your shoes, right? The worst case of helicopter parenting looks like this. Velcro shoes till they're 18 years old. I'm just going to remove the problem from the equation and all obstacles from their way, right? And then we go to the second tier, which we find, I think a lot of us who are parents find ourselves being, which is I'm going to teach my kids what I know. I'm going to teach them how I tie my shoes. And I think where we want to go is a deeper level. It looks like this. You go to a 5-year-old and a 5-year-old has their shoes untied and you say, wow, it's going to hurt when you fall. You might want to do something about that. And a 5-year-old can start a camera chat with ChatGPT and say, hey, can you watch me and teach me how to tie my shoes and tell me how I'm doing? What's the value of them doing that? Was it that they learned how to tie their shoes? I would argue no. The real value of that was at the age of 5, I realized that I don't need an adult in the room to solve my problems. That, at its core, I think is what's so fundamental that we help and build with our students as they think about this. So we've got to build our self-efficacy with our students if we're going to overcome this. Number 2, digital citizenship. We have seen the ramifications, both good and bad, that technology without digital citizenship has on the mental load of our students. And a lot of us assume that students know how to use technology, and I would argue, well, they know how to use it for video games and social media, but not always as a productive device. And the first thing I'll share with you is, thinking about Minecraft. I love Minecraft, right? I love playing it myself. What's interesting is that anytime, my little brother loves to play it as well. Every time my little brother got stuck in Minecraft, he immediately went to YouTube and solved that problem. He didn't even think about it. He just immediately went and solved it. That same day, he didn't know how to do math homework, right? He does what most kids do. He went to my parents. My parents didn't know how to solve it. And he gave up. He was like, oh, I guess I can't learn. I guess I can't do my homework today. Never thinking to go to YouTube or other resources to solve it. Why? Why did he do that in his gaming world, but not in his educational world? Well, for him, it was deemed as cheating, right? It was seen as cheating. It wasn't even how his brain worked. And so I think what I've seen is this lack of skill in what I call find, filter, and apply. Can I find accurate information and then create something beautiful out of that information? That is something we need to train our kids on if we're going to move forward to the digital age. And on the flip side, I see another problem occur with social media. It is my belief that either you use the internet or the internet uses you. There are only 2 modes to engage with the internet. And what I mean by this is you're using the internet when you see a problem in your life. Oh, my sink is not working. You go to YouTube and you solve it and you fix your sink. That's you using the internet. That's fantastic. The internet uses you when it gives you information you did not seek out, information that you did not look for, the idea of social media scrolling. Now, why this is so potentially concerning, especially for our youth, is that it starts to shape how we perceive the world and how we think without realizing it, right? And our eyeballs are the product. Their goal is to get us to come back to the platform every single day and continue to scroll. That is what they're doing as a company. And so because of this, we start to think the rest of the world thinks like we think. And when we, meet a real human, right, it starts to feed us our beliefs that we like and not feed us alternative opinions. So when we meet a real human in the real world who has a different opinion than us, well, they're stupid. They're an idiot. And I know they're stupid because they're the only ones who has that opinion. It can be very harmful. So I think that we've got to teach our kids both the ability to find ways to solve their problems effectively and also encourage them to use it in constructive ways instead of being used by the internet. Third, the lack of engagement. We have seen a huge decline in students' engagement into school right now. And I want to share with you a story of a college professor of mine. This college professor, I loved him. He was great. There was no multiple choice tests. He took you on a journey of self-discovery. He asked you great questions. I loved this teacher. But I started asking my peers what they thought of this teacher, and I realized I was the only one who liked him. So I did some research on a very academic website called Rate My Professor. For those of you who don't know, this is a website that 99% of college students use to evaluate whether he is a good teacher or not. He had one of the lowest scores I've seen, and there are 3 criteria to this website: easiness, clarity, helpfulness. 3 words for easy. That is how we measure our teachers as a student perspective to be successful. There's also the chili pepper up here. Not sure if anyone knows what that means, but apparently it's your attractiveness. Your ability to be attractive also affects your ability to be a good teacher, apparently. But if that was not enough, here are the words in why my peers said he was a bad teacher. Not worth it, not what it seems. Well, I learned a lot about business myself, teamwork, etc. However, none of this learning took place inside the classroom. And my favorite one, doesn't actually teach it all, but makes you use what you've learned so far in school to do it yourself. If you were reading these quotes without the ratings, you would think these are positive reviews. And yet these are the reasons that our students don't like this teacher. So here's the reality we live in, right? We can sit here and tell our teachers, you got to innovate, you got to be different, you got to get uncomfortable. But then their students are going to revolt against them, right? Because that is not what they're perceiving as their why do we go to school. I don't blame students necessarily for this attitude. Anytime I grew up and I asked the question to adults, why do I have to go to school? I was always told the same answer. You go to school to get good grades, to get into a good college, to get a good job. That is why you go to school. And we wonder why our kids do exactly what we told them to do and seek the path of least resistance. So this, at our core, I think, is one of the reasons that we have such a low engagement in the classroom. Now, looking at the institutions themselves, what holds us back at schools and how we operate and how we run schools? Well, let's talk about some of the data. Right now, as most of you on this call probably know, teachers are the #1 burnout profession, with 44% of districts having some sort of vacancy right now. They're officially #1 in this. The other thing that we're starting to see is the American people are shifting priorities. In the last 3 years, the need prioritization of college prep went from 10th priority to number 47th priority out of 57. Career readiness went from 27 to 6th. There is a pendulum swinging right now. People are feeling it. 30% of Americans rated that they felt their schools were satisfactory in preparing us for that workforce. These are numbers that we have to figure out how to overcome. And I want to, again, unpack these numbers a little bit more. Let's talk about the first problem that I see in our educational institutions. The first is the curriculum design. The questions we ask have not changed all that much in a very long time. If I asked you who the 15th president of the United States was, I don't know if anyone knows. Without Googling it, feel free to post it in chat. But if I asked you this question 30 years ago, how would you have had to solve it, right? You had to go to a library, practice your oral communication skills, talk to a real human, and then go to the card catalog doohickey system to find an encyclopedia to find the answer to this simple question. How do we solve it today? We immediately go to Google, AI, wherever, and we get the answer. I would argue that 30 years ago, the value of this question was not that we remembered the 15th president was James Buchanan, by the way, but in fact, that we learned how to develop our human skills along the way in this question. So one of the things that I think we have to overcome is figuring out what does it mean to design learning and curriculum environments that focus on building human skills, not necessarily knowledge retention. The second problem that I think is often overlooked. When I think about the workforce, I think that when the industrial age happened, we built an education system that mirrored the workforce. I think we need to do the same thing again. We need to look to the workforce and say, what kind of humans do you need in the workforce? And one of the biggest challenges I've seen is the way that we manage our people in education across the board. Let me explain what I mean. In a traditional company, right? Especially if you go back 20 years ago, in a traditional company, typically the manager was the smartest person in the room. And because they're the smartest person in the room, what they do is they define what success is and they figure out how to obtain success. And so what they're doing is they're holding their people accountable to following a process. Follow these, you may not know why you do it, follow these 10 steps and we'll get along just fine. That was the traditional way in which we managed employees. That has since changed dramatically. And what we see it is we've flipped, we've reversed everything. The employee is the smartest person in the room. Your job as a manager is to still define what success is. Here's how I know we're successful when we do X. I have no idea how to get to X. Good luck figuring it out, right? And getting out of the way of that employee. That is what it looks like to be in the corporate world today. And every single employee, manager or otherwise, has to then figure out, how do I creatively collaborate with my peers to come up with some genius way to approach the problem? This, at our core, is why I believe human skills are on the rise and the ability to follow a process is on the decline. When we think about this, the top is a transactional leadership. It is the idea that I'm trading my time for a paycheck. Whereas the flip reverse of that is transformative. It is transforming some sort of outcome and desire and creating something of value. And when we think about this in education, I think at our core, this is one of the biggest problems we have right now, is how, as administrators, how do we manage our teachers? Our teachers, our administrators, the smartest person in the room and dictating step-by-step process, here are the 100 ways you teach your class today? Or have we flipped that? But then going even deeper, is the teacher the smartest person in the classroom? And they're dictating to the students, here's how we're going to learn, here's what we're going to learn, here's how we're going to approach the problem. We see this play out in those situations. And I think it's something that we have to start mirroring what the workforce looks like to see change in education. Got to bring Steve Jobs into this. It doesn't make sense to hire smart people and tell them what to do. We hire smart people so they can tell us what to do. If teaching becomes a transactional job and not a transformative career, then I think teachers will be replaced by AI. We have to create a culture where teachers have freedom and autonomy and are empowered to do right by their students and have an innate passion and desire to do right by their students so they can approach solving the problem differently. The third challenge we face as institutions is what you measure is what gets funded. It's what gets prioritized at the end of the day. Right now, most of education is measured on standardized tests and attendance. This is something the workforce used to do as well. Manufacturing jobs. Did you clock in time and check all the boxes that I need you to check to follow the process? It worked for that workforce time. The workforce does not measure this anymore. We have remote work. We have all sorts of different metrics. Right now, we avoid measuring inputs. We focus on measuring outputs and outcomes. So we need to rethink and redefine what we measure if we're going to be successful and mirror that workforce to get different results. So, anyone feel overwhelmed with the problems ahead of us? We are faced with some of the biggest challenges we have ever faced in education as we have to transition to a new era in society. The flip side, the good news about these challenges is there's another way to look at it. I call it job security. Because if these problems were easy, AI would have solved them a long time ago and we would be out of a job. It is because it is difficult that we have to go forward and try to solve these things, and it's really important work that we're doing. So what's the solution? What do we do about it? How do we build this future education? I want to talk back to this question of why do we go to school and how do we succeed at whatever our destination in education is? Right now, I would argue that this has been our destination for over 200 years. We are set to prepare students for an industrial age where they are consistent, literate, and obedient. And the goal is grades and standardized tests. That is the objective of school today. And we created a model, a traditional model that was really good at this, right? Scantrons and desks and blackboards and pencils. And this worked for a really long time. I want to tell you a little bit about my story of how I came into this space. I've been in education reform for over 15 years. And I started when I was 17 years old in Fayetteville, Georgia. I started taking notes on my smartphone in my history class as a senior, but the policy in my school was no cell phones allowed. And so my phone was confiscated, teacher took it up. I went home super frustrated, complained to my parents. My dad eventually said, "Shut up. If you don't like education, do something about it. Be the change that you want to see here." And so I spent 4 months building a YouTube video showing how one-to-one mobile learning would transform education. If you could just give every student a device, all of our problems will be solved. Education will be for the better. Steve Jobs found that video. He promoted it through Apple Education. They went viral around the world. And by complete accident, I fell into this world of education technology. And for the first 10 years of my career, I went on every speaking platform that would let me get up there. And I would say that, I would preach that we've got to go one-to-one. That was the goal. And you know what happened? Absolutely nothing. COVID hit. We did it. We got everyone a mobile device. Mission accomplished. All we actually did was create a more expensive way to do what we've always done before. The problem at its core is we focused on how we get somewhere, and we didn't focus on changing the goalpost, the target. And what's so interesting right now is I see history repeating itself right now in this moment. I see us now doing the same thing with AI. How can we put all these AI tools everywhere in the classroom? All of our initiatives are about, latest and greatest top 10 AI tools you now need for your classroom. And I get it. I've been there. When we did the one-to-one, that's what I focused on pushing over and over and over. My belief is that we will get the same result because we have not changed the end destination. That, at its core, is what we are here in this movement to talk about, think about, and obsess with every time we go into this educational world. We have to aspire for something else. We need to redefine the very purpose, the reason we go to school. We have to reimagine and redefine. This was made so relevant to me a couple months ago, and a part of why Michelle and I got together and we were so adamant about starting the human intelligence movement is that I'll tell you a little bit about, what happened for me. I run ProSolve, and we build, game-based, play-based human skill curriculum and your social emotional curriculum, things like that. And I was talking to a superintendent in California, and he came up to me. He's like, "You know what? We're going to put your product in all of our after-school and summer programs. And you know why we're going to do it? Because it's good for kids. It is what they actually need to grow as humans." And I joked back to him. I said, "Oh, well, if it's good for kids, then why don't we just put it in the school day so all your students can experience it?" And he laughed. His response was, "Are you kidding me? There's no way I could put this in the school day." I knew right then and there's a reason that we have mediocrity in the products, the solutions, the thinking that comes to education. Because when we built what we built, we did not build it. There are 3 ways to build a product. Build something out of your own mind. That's where most entrepreneurs start. Build what your current customers want, or build what the untapped market wants. And most entrepreneurs like me, I started by building something I wish I had as a kid, something I really just wanted to see in the classroom, and it resonated with people. And as it grew, all my business advisors told me the same thing. All right, now that you're getting bigger, you got to take it serious. Go build to the market. Every company is told build to the market. Find out what the market wants, find out what they're funding, and build that. I was mortified by my journey of doing that, because all it came down to was, how is your product going to improve standardized test scores and create butt in seats? At the end of the day, it boiled down to that essence. And it dawned on me, this is why we have mediocre solutions sometimes. So we've got to aim for something different. And when I talk about the aim, I mean, what if? Can you imagine if education prioritized, funded, and paid for the development of human skills every single time your kids walk into your classroom? You know, we see this happening all over, by the way. Portrait of a Graduate is phenomenal at moving us forward in this direction. Micro-credentialing, badging, all these things that are mimicking the real world are happening right now. Part of the problem is that they're not being funded. Districts are putting their Portrait of Graduate together, but there's no funding to support that work. This is why the movement exists. This is why we are here today. The movement is obsessed with this idea of how do we do three important pieces of work to move us forward. First, how do we define human intelligence, human skills, and bring awareness for the need of them in our classes to prepare our students for that workforce? This is key, a key part of the work we want to do. Two, how do we advocate and lobby for policy change? At the end of the day, we have to change legislation to focus on funding the building of our human skills in our public institutions. And finally, how do we build a community of best practices? How do we build people like you who are coming together saying, here are some of the tried and true methodologies, not to build us in the knowledge era, but to build our human capacity and our ability to work with our students in this way. If you are here today, you are probably here because you have felt this way for a long time. There are many organizations out there that are doing phenomenal work that very much align with this work as well. I think where the human intelligence movement wants to be different, where it wants to focus on, is be laser focused on this thing. This movement won't need to exist when these three things happen successfully, right? And we got a long way to go, and change does not happen with one company, one individual. It is time that we stop perpetuating the status quo. Right now, big institutions, big colleges, big organizations, they are the ones who are keeping us and putting us in that status quo because they benefit from the way the system works today. We have to create an army of students, parents, teachers, companies who demand something more, something different out of these educational institutions. And when we do that, we will start to see change in the system. So I'll leave you with this thought before I turn it back over to Michelle and continue this great conversation and panel with you all. As we go back to our lives, our districts, and we go back to thinking about where we're going, I see a lot of leaders rallying behind artificial intelligence. How do we get AI at the forefront of education? And I think the problem with that argument is that there will be people for and against that initiative, right? You'll have people against AI, people for it, and it's going to be divisive. To create true change, what if we rally behind the pursuit of human intelligence? What if we say, look, the end goal of our initiative is we want to build human skills in our school district every single day. You're going to use AI a ton along the way to generate and create that, but it's the pursuit of humans that is what matters most. That is a message that everyone can rally behind. And the great news about this is good teachers have been doing it for decades, way before the technology. Great teachers have been building their human skills, building relationships, and connecting with their students in meaningful ways. The only difference in the world today is that I believe it's now a requirement for us to do it in the classroom, not a nice to have. So with that said, please continue to be a part of this movement. Bring your voice, bring your ideas, bring your thoughts, help push and challenge all of us to become better as we build this community of best practices. Thank you so much for your time. I'll turn it back over to you, Michelle.
Thank you. Thanks, Travis, for that inspiring message. It's been amazing to see all of the thoughts in the chat as people have taken away kind of what their next steps will be to really bring this human intelligence forward. So I want to talk a little bit more about how the human intelligence movement will make this happen. And kind of echoing what Travis said, as a movement, our first area is really to generate awareness. And we generate awareness through lots of different ways, through events like this virtual summit, through our presence on social media, through podcasts and speaking opportunities. I think one of the most important things that we are doing right now to elevate this need for human skills in our education system is our research team coming together to really define what are the human skills that we will not be replicated by AI. And so if you are part of the research team, maybe just give a shout out in the chat that I just want to acknowledge the hard work that all of you are doing to really be defining human intelligence for our AI world. And so as a community that we come together to both, sorry, I'm struggling with the screen share a little bit. Okay, so we're, as a community, we're really working on that awareness, but we also as a community come together both in digital spaces and physical spaces to really learn from one another. I loved watching the chat today while Travis was speaking. It was so great to see all the people that disagreed with you, Travis, and pushed kind of your ideas, because that's what it's all about. It's coming together and really being in figuring out these wicked problems. And that takes discourse. It isn't about us all thinking the same way. And so this community is really a group of people that are going to tackle the wicked problems in education, the ones that have been around for hundreds of years. And it is now such an opportunity to make change in the space. And so this group, this community of like-minded educators, it's really a platform for all of us, whether we are educators, administrators, or innovators, to really think about what is it going to take to solve these problems. And as a result, we're really going to go out and we're going to advocate for change. And this really starts to fuel that policy making in a couple of ways. First and foremost, prioritizing our school system to really make sure that we are holding ourselves accountable to preparing students to graduate from our K-12 institutions with these human skills. So whether that is accountability measures at the local, the state, or the federal level, whether it's funding streams that prioritize building human intelligence in our schools, that's what this community is about. It's about generating awareness around the importance of that, bringing together a community to establish best practices and solve problems, and then really advocate for change in our outdated educational system. So I am excited to really introduce to you some of the people behind the movement that are really working to bring this forward. And first, I want to acknowledge our executive board of directors. You've met Travis, you've met myself. I want to introduce Jerry Alvarez, who is the superintendent of Santa Ana Schools in California, the Santa Ana Unified School District in California. We also have Dr. Keisha Ray, and she is the founder of K20 Connect. And we have Dr. Bob Taylor, the superintendent of Walnut Valley Unified Schools in California, and Dr. Shannon Terry, who holds two roles, the founder and chief, I love this title, so I got to get it right, the founder of the Learning AI Agency and the VP of National Strategic Accounts at Safari Montage. So this group of executive board members recently came together. We had our first board meeting, and it was a tremendous 2 hours of conversation that was all about how do we guide and support this human intelligence movement to really transform education in our AI world. And so I am thrilled to have board members with us today and excited to see where we work together to take this human intelligence movement. Next, I want to introduce to you the board, I'm trying to go to the next slide, Brooke, so maybe you can do that for me. Thanks. I want to introduce our directors. These directors make up our leadership team of people really dedicated to the areas of awareness, community, and advocacy. So first we have Sophie and Rachel working together to generate awareness. Sophie's our external engagement director and Rachel is our content and research director. And then Brooke, our membership engagement director, really building this community and helping foster human connection among all of our members. And Amy Orm is championing our fundraising efforts and working with our corporate sponsors and our corporate partners. And I have been, as the interim executive director, been given the opportunity to work alongside these amazing humans who are giving their time and talents each day. And this movement, this launch today would not be possible without the leadership of this director team. So thank you for all of your work. And not to, so I've had a chance to share with you about the executive team and the directors, but I also want to acknowledge we have 469 founding members. Many of you are here today who said, we want to come along on this journey with you and be part of this human intelligence movement. We also have 4 founding partners who are helping us shape what this movement looks like. The human intelligence movement is just 6 months old. We are in our infancy, and today again marks the launch of this official movement. And over the last 6 months, we have just been setting the stage for the amazing work that we are going to be doing. We've been doing a lot of awareness generation through podcasts and blog posts. We have many speaking engagements on the forefront and have been generating this followership on social media. So when you look at these stats, it's really inspiring, at least to me, to think about what the foundation that we have built in order to go out now and create some transformational change in education and begin to really think about how we will elevate human skills in our day-to-day classrooms. And I just want to say again, none of this would be possible without all of you. And this is only the beginning. And so thank you for joining us today. Thank you for being part of this movement. And I am excited to move on to our next segment, which is all about pushing our thinking and being in discourse around how are we going to solve these problems. So we're going to move to a think tank here after a break. So we're going to take just a quick 5-minute stretch break, and then we'll be back here at 2:03 to go ahead and get started with our panel discussion. Right, welcome back, everyone. Hope you had a chance to just refresh and recharge, get ready for our next segment, which is a panel discussion. But this is no ordinary or typical panel discussion. It is a think tank where what we really want to do is generate some thought-provoking dialogue that really focuses us on our collective impact. We've brought a diverse group of speakers together today, students, educators, administrators, innovators, really bringing their ideas to really shape what we are doing in education. And I want to just pull something out of the chat that I saw. Michael Harvey said, I think it is quite clear that AI is only part of the story of educational change required. And I couldn't agree with you more, Michael. This human intelligence movement has really very little to do with AI, but everything to do with AI. And we're really thinking about this opportunity to not just to really take this opportunity that AI has brought forward to us and think about what does that mean to transform learning to be more human-centered so we can build more human intelligence. So as we get ready for this think tank, here's what you need to know as participants. I really encourage you to put your ideas in the chat, put questions that you have for speakers in the chat. I'm going to moderate this discussion. I've got some questions to help guide us, but I really want to see where our team takes this, again, as we focus on our collective impact, shape ideas together, and drive real change. So I hope everybody's ready, and our speakers, let me introduce them. So here is who we have as our lineup. And we've got a great panel, like I said, of both students, educators, and innovators. So I am going to have us turn our view to our speakers and ask them to introduce themselves, and in one word, tell us your most human quality. And so let's go ahead and switch the screen share to our speakers. And I am going to pick on Jason first. I'm going to have Jason start us off because so Jason, go ahead and introduce yourself and one word that describes your most human quality.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jason. So I'm a professor of English and applied media at Berkeley College. So I'm on the East Coast. I teach in New Jersey, New York. And, oh gosh, one word. My one word is going to be uncertain.
Thanks, Jason. Uncertain. Okay, Barbara.
Hi, everyone. I'm Barbara from Oakland, California, and I'm a coach. I'm a podcaster and an author of 2 books on the why. So this means a lot to me. And so my one word is curiosity.
Rochelle.
Hello, everyone. I'm Rochelle Dene Pose. I am a full-time Spanish and STEAM emerging technology teacher.
My camera, can I have it back?
Also a full-time consultant and an attorney, love learning, and also an author like Barbara. So happy to be here. And gosh, it's so hard to pick one word. I think for me, I say curious. I'm curious about everything. I like everybody else's words. I know, I'm sorry, I'm trying not to take somebody else's, but I'm just curious for what's out there and what's next and what I can do, what I can keep doing to help others. So that's my word.
Two curious people. Fantastic. Jerry, go ahead.
For me, Jerry Almador, Superintendent, Santa Ana Unified School District, I think it would be compassion, just having the ability to kind of reflect and make sense out of this innovative environment, and really how can we learn it at an early stage to help improve our life and society, as opposed to how to do other things with it. So thank you.
Thanks for being here. All right, Samar.
Well, I'm so happy to be here. And first of all, thank you so much, Dr. Michelle, for having me on this amazing think tank. Well, one word to describe me would be empathy, because in my life, what empathy looks like would be much beyond kindness. It would be understanding my professors, my teachers, my batchmates, my family, or reflecting on my impact on, different actions on the earth as a global citizen. And yes, it also involves a lot of things as I start my new journey as a freshman in engineering. So yes, empathy.
So great that you're here, Samar. I had the best podcast with you. It was the highlight of all podcasts. No offense to the rest of you, but Samar and I had a great, lovely chat. So thank you. Daniel.
I'm Daniel Rickard. I'm from Fort Collins, Colorado. I am a senior at Poudre High School. I also run the news that we do at the school. I think the one word that I describe is freedom. I think as a human, I have this freedom to do and choose whatever I want. And I think that's something that like not many other things have.
Great. Thanks, Daniel. Greg.
Well, two of the ones I wanted to say have been taken, so I'll go with sharing. I know that's kind of bizarre. Coordinator of instructional technology in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and I do contract work for a couple of companies sharing ed tech and other tools across the country. So I like to share.
Thanks, Greg. We're glad you're sharing today with us. Callie.
I'm Callie Parks. I'm a senior at Poudre High School in Fort Collins, Colorado. And I'm a photographer. And I think one word to describe myself would be strong. Because like I've gone through some like hard times during like school due to my visual impairment. And I still push through that every day. So, yeah.
We're glad you're here, Callie. Thank you. And Mr. Antilopoulos, help me with your name, please.
You're talking about me?
Yes.
Yes. It's so difficult. I haven't understood it. It's Ioannis or John. You can say it John. It's Ioannis in Greek. I am an IT teacher from Athens, Greece. I'm very happy to be here, and I think that what describes me is a smile, whatever happens. I smile and I try to continue even if some difficult things happen.
Thank you for being here, John. Oh, all right. So we've met our think tank, and what a diverse group of people with different lived experiences, different perspectives that are all coming together. Now, we heard Travis talk about the importance of really building human skills for our future workforce. So I would love for this think tank to help us explore, what do you think the future of the workforce is going to look like? You know, let's talk like 5, 10 years from now. What skills are we going to need? Who wants to kick our conversation off?
I'll jump in.
Oh,
Sure, go for it, Barbara. What's the future of the workforce look like?
I think it's going to look more like a symphony. It's going to have maybe there's a conductor, but I feel like everyone is going to have a voice to make it work, and they're going to take turns being the conductor. I really think that it's going to be community based, so there's going to be different groups from all over. I always found when I was working in like high school, I just want these 3 beautiful students in my class, and they're so wonderful. I found them to be so much smarter than we gave them credit for. And I think that's what I want, is I want to be able to give them the opportunity to shine.
Go ahead, Jason.
So I'll use Barbara as a way to kind of help me out with my answer. I think the big skill is going to be listening, being able to like really, really listen to another person. I think that if we're not listening, we can't have empathy. We can't lead. We can't innovate. If we're not really can't hear. Sorry, apparently my son is listening to me and told me I'm talking too loudly. So I think that's going to be the foundational skill. And it's something that I think is becoming a challenge for a lot of us, like really hitting pause, listening to the other person, giving them the attention they need and that they deserve. Because I think without that, I think there's no moving forward.
Greg, I can
And-
tell you got something to say because
Well-
you had the big head nod going.
Well, I think, of course, it's. I shouldn't say of course because we don't listen to each other now. But I think we should, of course, be looking out for that. And the whole idea of collaboration and all the 4 C's, 8 C's, 7 C's, depends on whose book you read, all the C's. But I think one of the things that we're going to do, we're going to realize, so the pandemic really wasn't that bad in the sense of it taught us a lot of things. And in schools, we dropped all the things after the pandemic and ran back to the way things were. But I think we're going to slowly pick back up on, do kids have to, or do I have to work a 5-day work week? Do I have to do everything from an office? I think hybrid and remote work is going to become more and more pervasive. And I believe that the gig economy, as people say, or doing contract or consulting work, I think that's going to become more of the norm. I've been in my position, well, no, I've been in my district for 30 something years. And maybe jobs like teaching will have those longevities, but I don't think many jobs will have people going in places doing long years, because I think it's going to be more like a, I know this sounds, project-based learning will be in the workforce. You're going to hit this project, do this project, complete this project, and then move on to the next thing. That's in my humble opinion.
Daniel, tell us what you think the future of work will be like for you.
So, I mean, as you know, I'm a 17-year-old, so I'm heading into this idea of going into college and going into getting into the work world. And I mean, 10 years is roughly around the time that I'm going to be starting to actually fully getting into jobs and fully getting into like a career that I could do for the rest of my life. And that idea of just like, it's definitely going to be a lot like Jason is saying and Barbara is saying, it's just going to be a lot of like, you're going to have to listen. You're going to have to, it's not going to be this idea of going to a job, getting your instructions from the higher person, and then coming and just doing the work. I feel like it's going to be in this idea of you're going to have to actually put in effort and actually have to listen and put your own ideas out there, because this idea of just sitting and just doing what you were told is slowly disappearing, especially a lot with it, what Greg was saying with the COVID. COVID brought in this idea of, I don't have to go to a job, a 9-to-5 job every day, sit at a desk, do the exact same thing over and over and over again, go back home, and then wake up and do the exact same thing again. It's this idea that we can create our own ideas, take our ideas that we thought of, that we've been thinking of, and actually put in the work and effort to do it. And I think that if we try to go back to that 9-to-5 sitting at a desk job, we're going to get a lot more people not wanting to do those and leaving and quitting and trying to create their own jobs. So I feel like companies that want to keep their employees are going to have to evolve in that way. And I think that's where we're going to go.
So Daniel, I'm hearing you talk a lot about expand a lot on what Travis said around the management philosophy just a little bit ago. And so I'm really curious if, and I saw Callie, it's like she is nodding her head. She agrees with you like 100%, Daniel, on that. And same with Samar. So here's my question is, if that's what the workforce is going to look like and the style of management is to be, really empowered to bring your ideas forward, as you said, is that what today's education system looks like for you?
sadly, at least for some teachers, I've had teachers who have had it like that, but I've had some teachers where it is just that you get your assignment and you're required to do that assignment, and there's no way around it. Like, that's how you pass that class, and it's how it's been for a while, and it's something that I've felt like we shouldn't do, because we're getting to this point where there are kids who are wanting to do what have these different ideas to think of it. And if we teaching is it's very, God, I can't even remember the word, but I respect teachers. I do, because they're putting their effort and they're putting in their time to teach hundreds of kids every day a different how to live, and teach them that life is going to be many different things and you have to think many different ways. But I don't think that a lot of teachers are allowing kids to bring their ideas to the room. They have their set ideas that they learned when they were growing up and when they were learning, and that's what they're teaching. And I think that what we need to do when it comes to, if we want to evolve education as well, is we need to have teachers that allow you to maybe bring in your own view and your own way of thinking about anything in school. And I think if we can do that, we're not only going to be able to teach kids that this is how the workforce is going to become, but also allow kids to know that even if they're not the best at one way to do things, that they aren't stupid. They aren't, it's not impossible to do that. Like, it's not something they can't do. It's just that they have to think about a different way to do it and use who they are as a person to become better in an area that they may have thought that they were not the best at.
Well, Daniel, you're starting to really help us come up with solutions, like what ways to really change what the student experience is, how we start to transform what education looks like. Let's build on what Daniel's having to say. Callie, what would you offer in terms of, if you had to get rid of something that's happening in education today, what would it be and what would you replace it with?
I think education today, I would get rid of wow, that's a big question. In my personal opinion, I would get rid of like projects that the teacher chooses for you. Like, for example, if like your teacher said to do this project this way and only that way, I would want to do it a different way, because that's not my way of learning. That's not my way of showing how I understand things. And I think that's the big way. That's the big thing that I would change, is the way students can show how they learn and how they understand things, instead of being not per se forced to show it a different way. But yeah.
Well, your ideas are resonating with tons of people in the audience, Callie and Daniel, when you talk about choice and voice and self-directed learning. And Rochelle, you said you could really speak about the point around, I think, seat times and grades of what is what you'd get rid of. Is that what, or was it something
Well,
Callie said? I'll let you take it away.
Oh yeah, it's gosh, there are so many things that I could say. I'm like thinking about what Jason and Barbara and Greg and Daniel and everybody said. And I wish Daniel had found a time machine and came back about 20 years ago in my career and had that conversation with me, because I was very much that teacher for years, because I was teaching the way I had been taught and I didn't see anything wrong with it. It worked for me. It was going to work for everybody else. But as a language educator, I know that not everybody's going to go on to take Spanish and all these things, become a major or minor in Spanish, or a teacher. Like, we need teachers in general. Like, we need Spanish teachers. I'm just going to throw that out there. And then Greg talking about the gig economy, which I learned about 4 years ago. And I had this realization, like, I had been, like Callie said, like assigning projects like, okay, you have to do it this way, this paper. And then I was getting back glitter and feathers and all of these things that I didn't ask for and that I didn't want. And I was taking points away from students because they didn't follow my mold. But I also wasn't like, I was hearing my students ask about things, but I wasn't listening to their requests. Like, can't we do this way? And it took a little while to do that. And when I finally did,
And then I wanted
where
to
I
also
had
say-
students doing like project-based learning and the seats, I had very rigid rows in my room. And I realized one day I looked at my classroom about 8 years ago and I was like, this is terrible. The kids can't build relationships. They may not feel comfortable asking questions. Everything is like, come in, sit down, here's homework, repeat the next day. So I pushed them into stations. I got rid of the structure and it was uncomfortable because I was so worried about what everybody else would think. But what really mattered were the students. And when they started to come to me and say, you know what, I like Spanish way better this year. And I was like, I don't really know how I feel about that. Tell me more. And they said, because we're doing different things. We have choices in what we're doing. I feel like I'm actually having an active part in the classroom. I'm helping my classmates. I feel more comfortable. And there was much more after that. And I feel like it comes down to like, I don't know, when I got my training, we didn't have the pre-service programs that are available today, nor the technology for that matter. So I did the best I could. But when I started to listen more to the students and see the impact on them and realize that they all learn in different ways. And maybe they don't want to do a project where they write something, they're into film or they're into the arts, or they just want to talk. Like, being okay with that. So I started, and Callie, you might like this. I had 5 ideas and then I put always, if I had a 6th one, or if you have something that's a better idea than mine, and I would always say, which you might, let's talk about it. And when I did that, like what a difference it made. But it's not an overnight change, I don't think. But I totally agree with you and your points. And I just wish, again, that I would have heard that way back when. So that's what I was nodding my head at, is like giving them choice, the real world opportunities to connect, like do something that connects them with the community or on a global scale to learn about beyond like their own school community. So I will stop there. But thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you, Rochelle. And it's one of the things you mentioned was that the difficulty in changing practice as an educator. And I'm really curious, we've got Jerry, you lead an entire school district organization around this idea of being more student-centered and elevating student voice and choice. Can you talk to us a little bit about, how do you lead that change? Why is it so hard to make that happen?
Yeah, well, I think for a lot of the comments that were made here, people are in their lane and they're coming in their comfort zone, not really wanting to make the change. And I reflect on some of the conversations that were shared here. When we came out of COVID, all I heard was, we got to get back to normal. We got to get back to normal. Well, in a sense, normal wasn't necessarily where was working for us, right? And so, but what I value about in being in such a large organization and being a sitting superintendent for 15 years is that my evolution of leadership has evolved to maintain my relevancy. And so what I mean by that is I have professionals across the country that are different generations, but drawing me to spaces, to generations where they're currently at, to understand what their challenges are that we currently serve in our classrooms. And these students that are on this is so important and so valuable to hear their voices as a district leader that we don't often put ourselves in positions to hear. And so I think Jason said earlier, we need to be better listeners, not just for student voices, but for teacher voices and for parent voices. We need to create these spaces for all, because we're in these positions and we're making decisions that we're used to making that were good for us, not necessarily good for the generations we serve. And in today's environment, that is no longer acceptable. These kids are counting on us. They deserve the changes that are needed, and we need to respectfully disrupt the system in a good way that better serves the kids and the youth of this world.
Can you speak a little bit to what's getting in our way to do that?
I think it's the adults. I think it's the adults in the system are resisting the change, and I think you'd mentioned about innovation and some work that we're doing in Santa Ana. We're not mandating anybody to embrace this innovative state. We're asking for volunteers, those that are curious, raise your hands, and we will open up platforms for you. We just ask that you share what you learn. So as you begin to experiment in these spaces, learn from your colleagues, but come back and share it with us. And once we get the mass of the willing coalition going, I think it's going to take off. And I think that we're in a district right now, we're starting to get that momentum where more and more people are starting to understand the value of voice, to understand the value that it's not what they like to provide the instruction, but how do we meet the kids' needs and how do we prepare them for the skills of the future?
Well, that's really profound, and we're hearing from the chat a lot of ideas echoing all the reasons behind kind of why change isn't happening. I want to go to Samar, though. She said something. She said, "We are the system. We need to take responsibility." So elaborate on your thought there, Samar.
Yes, Dr. Michelle. I think that education has changed very little over the last 200 years because we have treated it more about training as compared to true learning. And training is so much different than education. Animals are trained, dogs and cats are trained, machine learning algorithms are trained, but humans, we are educated. And whenever it comes to, giving a fault at somebody, pointing out somebody about whose fault it is, we always say that it's the system's fault. The system is bad. But at the end of the day, we are the people who form the system. It's our responsibility to acknowledge it and to take ownership of our decisions. It's all on us. We need to evolve and we should be brave enough to embrace these new approaches and invest more upon teacher development as compared to teacher training. And we need to invest more in teacher education. And then later, these can create more learning experiences which are more personalized and relevant as compared to any sort of experience that a simple course can provide. Teacher education is much more better than just training.
Well, you're speaking to my heart, Samar, and the chat's blowing up here. But on this panel, John, you going to respond to her here because I was looking for who's going to build and on this or bring some new ideas. Go ahead, John.
The system, we say, and the safe way. We don't want to change things, and that's the problem. I remember a phrase from Grace Murray Hopper. She said that ships are safe in the harbor, but ships are not made to stay in the harbor. They are made for traveling. So we have to try. Teachers are tired. They don't want to learn new things. From my experience in my country, they say it's enough. After COVID, with COVID, we had to learn Teams. That's enough. Now we can't learn new things. I tell them about AI. I present them some things, and they say enough. We don't have time. Sometimes they told me, stop saying these things. We don't need more things to learn. It's okay. We, as someone said before, we have been here without all these things. Let's continue these things. Change is very difficult.
Yeah.
And I think we try very much in this direction. Thank you.
Yeah. Jason, do you want to go ahead?
Oh yeah, and I love all this conversation. I love Samar's ideas about the system. So I'm going to push it from a slightly different angle or maybe make a slightly different point. I think one of the reasons it hasn't changed much is because many of the people in power making decisions think it has changed a lot. I think that's one of the big obstacles. So one of the things that happens is, I won't age myself too much. When I went to school, I was taught with chalkboards. We didn't have dry erase boards yet. And so I have that experience. And all of my friends and a lot of my family members did. And so you go back into a room and you see students do it. The technology is so different. The classroom looks so different. And so you're able to convince yourself, oh, actually, maybe it did change. Maybe the classes have fundamentally changed over the last 15, 20 years. But what is important is when you look past that, the dynamic hasn't changed. And I think that's actually a big obstacle for a lot of people. When you have a system that really sort of looks like it changed, but it hasn't really on the surface, right? Fundamentally, it's the same. I think that becomes an obstacle for a lot of us. And that's an error that's made again and again. So one of the things that happened, it happened during COVID, it happens constantly, is this idea. And all I need to do is to take the system as it is right now, add something like technology, and now it's better because it looks better, right? On the surface, it looks better, even if the dynamic hasn't changed, the fundamentals of that system haven't changed. And so they're not actually listening to students more. But if you are, say, higher up or you're really leading change, you can say, all right, it's reformed, right? Because you have that initial stimuli that you can take a look at and back that up. I think that's one of the obstacles that we have. And I think that it's rarely talked about, that we can convince ourselves that it has changed if we just don't look beneath the surface.
That is a really valid point. It takes me back to Travis's keynote when he talked about us putting devices in the hands of all of these learners, thinking that education was going to change, and this fear of repeating history with AI tools as well. Does anyone want to comment on Jason's idea there, elaborate on that, or maybe have a counter to that?
I'll go ahead.
We got a couple. Go for it first, Jerry.
I was just going to say that, he's absolutely right. But I look at it through the leadership lens. So I think that teachers are like students, they're eager and they're curious and they're adventurous. I think the systems that they work in are the clogging it and slowing things down. And so for me personally, it starts with superintendents. It starts with boards of education. If a superintendent isn't in the space and not understanding the environment that is coming at us like a wave, then we're going to keep doing the things the way we've always done it and support our teachers the way we always have. And if you look at the assessment results for the past few decades, we've had more money, more staff development, more before and after school programs, new curriculum, and no significant increase in academic performance across the country. So if we know it doesn't work, why are we doing the same thing we've always done? And that's where, for me, it's reimagining how we lead, reimagining how we teach, and reimagining how we learn.
Thanks, Jerry. Go ahead, Barbara.
Well, Jerry said most of the things I was going to say, so I'm just going to take it from a different end. As a teacher trainer and teaching technology, I just remember doing workshops, teaching them how to use the tech, but not bringing in human skills. We weren't taught. And so this is something where we need to learn how to change the way we do teacher training. And when Jerry mentioned school boards, we need to figure out how to get school boards so they understand what the human skills are and be able, because they're doing they control the funding, right? And so that concerns me, is that there's no student voice in many school boards. And we don't talk about these skills and why we need them. We talk about academic achievement. And so we need to look at how we're going to change that. And I look back at what I did, just like I really appreciate Rochelle being so humble and sharing, some of the things that didn't work. I look back and think, oh, wow, I was teaching them and showing everyone how to use a certain technology tool as I was the expert. That I was modeling what I don't want to see now. You see, it's the same idea. How do we change that? And I'd love to see more students like we have here out there and putting on YouTube channels and sharing all the ways that they're, what their message is. So, but I'm so glad, I'm honored to be on this panel. Thank you.
Jump in
So-
there, Greg.
So yeah, I'll just go ahead and jump in. I think of the Demings quote, every system is perfectly designed to get the result that it gets. And I think our system was designed to get what we're getting. And so this is one of my mini soapboxes. One of the things I believe, and I do, Jason, not going against you or Jerry, I love you both, even though we just met. Love at first sight, I guess. But the whole idea of, I don't think that we are thinking about the students and what's best for students. I remember back when I was teaching 20 years ago in the classroom, and the study came out about teenagers needing more sleep. Why am I at school at 6:30 teaching a class of kids at 7 o'clock when everyone's saying they need more sleep, but we're going to get them up early anyway? I think we're trying to do what's best for the adults and not the students. And it gets to me all the time because I think folks say, oh, well, because of this and this and this. No, it's because it's more easy. It's easy for you. It's for your comfort. It's for your work life. It's for and I think we do a disservice to all the students when we don't put them at the center, and we're not thinking about the students and how we can care for them as we're teaching them, not training them. And Samir, oh my goodness. Whew, you're on fire. Anyway, that's all I have for about now.
Michelle, can I add to that?
Please.
Michelle, can I add to that? Okay. I think we're all saying the same thing. We're just saying it differently. One of the things that we learned coming out of COVID is, kids were like, why do I have to turn on my camera? Why do I have to be logged on at this particular time? And for a variety of different reasons, what we discovered was that a lot of our kids in our community were taking care of siblings as their parents had to go and work when things were shut down. We had students working to help supplement the family income. So they couldn't log on in the morning, they could log on in the afternoon. So that made us think, like, why do students have to come in at 8 o'clock in the morning and leave at 2? Can we have an AM session and a PM session? It made us think, why do students have to come to a brick and mortar 5 days a week? Can they come 3 days and do internships out in the community or learning experiences out in the community the other 2 days? Can we have an AM session and a PM session? And same for the teachers. And so this is to Daniel's point about reimagining what education looks like and how we need to reset the adults in the room, their perception of how we need to move forward. And it's not just us, it's the accountability from the federal and the state levels. They're not changing. You think we're slow in public education. The state legislature and the federal government is way slower than us. And so I think by this movement coming together and having these conversations and disrupting systems and questioning things in a good way is what's going to move the dial.
Well, Jerry, I'm glad you brought that up. We're getting some questions in the chat a little bit about how do we do this with the accountability measures that are in place and the accountability measures tied to funding. So here's my question for this panel. We really want to hear, do you feel there is value in standardized tests? And yes or no? What do you think? Is there still value in standardized tests? And Callie, you lead us, you kick us off.
I do not think there is value in standardized testing. Like CMAPS testing and all like PSATs and SATs. I feel like especially SATs, especially after COVID, colleges, most colleges don't take them anymore. And I've ever since elementary school, I have opted out of like CMAPS testing because of my visual impairment. And I'm graduating a semester early at high school and I'm a straight A student. Like I don't see any point, like if I took those tests, would I have done better or would I have done worse? Or no, I don't know.
Well, congratulations, Callie, on graduating early. That's great. Let's hear from Daniel, and then we'll go to Samar. Is there still value in standardized assessments? Daniel, what do you think?
So it's this is for me because it's an interesting question because it's a question that I've been asking myself since I came to high school, because I had heard about coming into high school, I had heard that a lot of the teaching, especially going into colleges, you're going to have to prep yourself for taking this SAT, taking this one specific test that could have a massive effect on if you can get into if a college will look at you or not. And the more I went into high school, that was where my thought was until roughly about halfway through last year I had realized that a lot of colleges aren't actually looking at your SAT scores. So going into my SAT score, while I still put in a good effort, I didn't stress to the point where I thought if I didn't do good on this test, that the schools that I was looking at for college were just not going to look at me. And when I went more into research, I realized a lot of these colleges, the reasons why they're not giving or not really caring about your SAT scores is because they're not, when applying and accepting people, they're not putting a lot of preference on a lot of high grades, a lot of clubs. They're looking at what would you do? What are you doing outside of school? What are you doing to put in effort and creativity out of school? Why are you going to go to college if you're just going to be going to another like 4 years of high school just to learn? I feel like a lot of colleges now they're looking at what will a college allow you to do to create more ideas on yourself, to allow you to bring something new to anything that you're wanting to put into. So I want to go into computer science. That's what I'm working towards. That's what I'm going to go to college for. And I was looking at these applications for computer science and scholarships, and these questions are not necessarily what were your grades and what is the education level that you've took, but more in line of what did you do to learn and allow yourself to learn new things about what you're wanting to go into, and what outside of school did you do? Like, what jobs did you do outside of school? Did you do any community work? Did you tutor someone? Did you have to help your family take care of siblings? And to bring it all back to like standardized testings, I think standardized testing is this idea of being able to take what you've learned and put it into one thing instead of taking what you've learned and expanding on it. It's taking what you've learned, take this one test, and then that's really it. And I think to have that and to not allow kids to express what they've learned in different ways, it's just standardized testing can't show different ways of learning. It shows certain ways of learning, and that's it. And I think that's just
Daniel, brilliant. It sounds really like you're talking about the standardized test doesn't really show who you are as a human and all the things that you bring and your potential. That's what I'm taking away from your message. Samar, what are your thoughts on standardized assessments?
Well, I think that standardized tests measures only specific knowledge and our ability to memorize things, which is also a skill, but it is not that essential today because our education system is shifting from a knowledge-based one to more skill-based one. And like one of the teachers mentioned in the chat window, a more curiosity-based one. So we should eventually have the ability to apply whatever we learned into the real world. And one thing that my teacher always used to say in the class is that there will always be one student who scores really good marks, but they won't be having, the application purpose of whatever they have learned. And then that's one thing, to prepare for the test and score well. But actually knowing the concepts and applying it to solve problems, and yet maybe you didn't score that well, that's a completely different thing. So preparation and scoring is one thing, and application is another thing. So standardized test doesn't capture this full scope of what we call human intelligence, because it's far too complex to be actually quantified by a single number like it is done in standardized tests. It is eventually the marks that we score in these competitive exams like we have in India. It's just a key. We have only a small number of seats. We have so many students. So how do we filter it out? We have standardized tests. But to define yourself as a person, we need those skills. We need the application. We need skills like creativity. We need skills like adaptability. We need empathy and problem solving. Eventually, that is what is required in the workforce. And human intelligence, it's something very dynamic. It's always changing. It's very multifaceted. And to actually measure it by just bubbling something on the answer script, it's genuinely not possible. And that's why I'd like to circle back to something that Callie mentioned. We need more student choice in project-based learning as well, because when we apply these skills in real-world projects, that's when we know that our knowledge has some real value. And definitely standardized tests won't be able to give the whole view of who we are as a person.
So let me ask you something then. Do you think that assessing human intelligence should be something additional or replace knowledge-based assessments?
I think it should be something additional, because eventually the system at this point of time is that we have less number of college seats. We have a lot of students. So it would take some time to actually, change the system. So to slowly implement it, we would need an additional assessment. And maybe if it works well, we can actually replace standardized testing. And we could measure like these 5 core skills, what I call PEACE. So I developed this abbreviation for it. It is problem solving. It is ethical reasoning along with emotional intelligence. A for adaptability, C for critical thinking and creativity, and E for engaging with others, because these are eventually the essential skills which would be needed in today's world. And for example, like right now we are having all our college assessments going on, and at the same time we are being a part of the SDG Warriors, we are a geographically separated team, and it's very similar to the remote workers in an organization. And as we work towards like our shared goal for a passion project in producing quality podcasts, we are not just learning more about these technical skills, but we are actually practicing these peace skills. We are getting to solve these problems. We are getting to stay adaptable. We are getting to collaborate with one another and apply emotional intelligence at the real time along with our traditional exams. And like I mentioned, real world projects like these can actually help us to develop these skills along with getting entry into high level, high paying jobs.
Thanks, Samar. What do others think about this idea? Should the measure of human intelligence come alongside knowledge base or replace knowledge based assessments? Go ahead, Jerry.
That's a good question. I think things are still too little fresh, but I'll tell you where I can see it to articulate my position on that. But I'll tell you where we're leaning more towards right now is more competency-based assessments, and what does that look like? And I see AI creeping into these competency-based assessment that we have yet to embrace, but it's really more about do students, do teachers, does staff have the skill set to actually do the things that we're trying to do, whether it's the standards that are given by each state. But we're seeing more and more of that from industry, that they're looking for competency-based results as opposed to standardized assessment results. And if you look at the declining enrollment that's happening across the country, kids aren't necessarily taking advantage of the community college track or the four-year university track. They're going into these certification programs, getting certified, and then being hired in six-figure jobs in a variety of different industries. So it is important and critical that we change, because if we don't, we're going to become extinct.
Well, and we're getting some comments in the chat around how do we measure human intelligences? So Jerry, you started to take us on this path of competency based. Does anyone want to elaborate a little bit more on we've talked about project based, competency based, how do we measure these human skills?
Michelle, can I add?
Yeah.
Add? So I think, at least for us, because we've been on this journey for about 2 years, it is not having the answers, but going on the journey. And so when we are asked a question like this, the question is, we will put our heads together as an organization, pull our key thought leaders in, and then make a decision, and then pilot that decision and test case it. And if it works, then we did something really good. If it doesn't work, then we need to pivot. And I think the journey that each district or each organization goes on, that is the critical aspect. You have to pull people in. You have to ask the questions that are being asked in the chat, but each organization and each group and each district has to be able to come up with the answers for them, what's good for their community. And so, it's just the journey, and that's the human part of this innovation that we're embracing. And for me, it's exciting because innovation actually frees up time to be more human. People just don't understand that right now. They're thinking it's freeing up my time to make my job easier. It's not about making your job easier. It's about being more human and that making that connection.
Do you have an example of that, Jerry, how the use of AI has made you more human?
Oh yeah, we have quite a few examples. We approach AI in Santa Ana in 3 different areas. 1, operational efficiency. 2 is as a thought partner, and 3, to embrace and reimagine in teaching and learning. And one of the biggest feedbacks that we got when we started doing our student listening session was that the students were telling us they felt like the adults in the system didn't care. So we went to the adults and we asked them, hey, here's what the students are saying. We had over 60 hours of student audio, 600 students we interviewed from kindergarten all the way up to high school, and compiled all of this data and found that the emerging trends from the students was the adults in the system don't care. So we went to the teachers, and said, hey, not to blame, but just to have a conversation. The students are saying, they wish there was a better connection. And the teachers were saying, well, we would love to connect, but my principal has me covering classes when teachers call in sick. I got to do all these compliance issues. I got to prepare for the assessments, got to attend IEPs. We went to the principals and we said, hey, how come you're not supporting your teachers? They looked at us and said, you got to be kidding me. You're pulling us off to mandatory meetings at the district office and making us do all these compliance issues. We don't have time to support our teachers. So we took a step back and we really had to begin to reflect on our leadership and what were some things that we provided for our students, but to make it more human-centered. The AI platforms free up people's time, takes the routine duties like developing lesson plans, and they can do it very quickly to do more of those human things. Same thing with the principals. They can generate letters, they can generate reports, they can strategic plan in minutes now instead of weeks, so they can be in the classroom. And that's how we're approaching it.
Thanks, Jerry. Callie, did you have something that you wanted to offer?
Well, I wanted to explain that I've felt that with teachers, not even now, a couple of my teachers right now, especially with my my visual impairment, I need these certain things that I need to be successful. And sometimes I feel like they just don't care. They're like, oh, you'll get through it, or oh, you don't really need it, or oh, or I'll just push you through to the next step. And I'm like, but I want to learn this. I want to learn it. But again, how am I supposed to learn it when you're not helping me? So that AI part of it, actually, I've started using it in a couple of my classes, and it's helped a lot actually.
That is great to hear, Callie. And, you know, my heart goes out to you that you haven't gotten the support that you've needed from all of your teachers throughout your education career. So I'm glad, though, that you're finding a way to leverage AI to help you be successful. In our last moments together before we move into breakout rooms, I just want to give the panel an opportunity to sort of close with some last thoughts. You know, this conversation so far has really illuminated a lot of things for me and pushed my thinking in ways. So I want to open up the floor and see what your big takeaways are as we get ready to go into breakout rooms and continue the discussion. Rochelle, do you want to kick us off with a thought or two?
Sure. Yeah, well, it's been great listening to, students, absolutely, like, hands down. And again, that's something I wish I did so long ago, because you always, I don't know, I just always thought, like, I make all the decisions, like, you can't have any say in it. And hello, sorry. So the biggest thing is, I think change can be difficult. And I mean, I've been an educator for many, many years, and it's not that easy. And people think that the longer that you teach and you're in education, that it becomes easier to do. And it doesn't, because things are constantly changing. And I was very comfortable in what I was doing because, like I said before, it worked for me. But I think what I'm taking away from what everybody's saying is, like, you need a lot of different people in conversations about the changes that are happening. And you need a lot of people involved to continue to evaluate what is being done in our schools, what are the opportunities for students, what's available in the community. And it doesn't come down to just one person. Like, there's lots of voices in that conversation. And for some people, it's going to come very easily. And for some people, it's going to be very difficult. And that you're going to have pushback, which you should, because that's how you learn and grow and adapt. And those are just the off the cuff random thoughts. But I don't think there's one right or wrong answer to it, as long as everybody is working towards continued progress, even if it's just something small each day that you can see that you've made a difference and you've made an impact for one student, on one teacher, and you just can reflect on that and continue to do better.
Thanks, Rochelle. Who else wants to close us out with a thought here to send us to breakout rooms in a moment? Go ahead, Samar.
Right. So I think that the one thing that is actually resisting our thing to actually change the education system is definitely both our comfort in relying on our traditional practices, and also because there's a lot of fear of the unknown. So definitely this change would require, like, a good and a bold vision, and definitely lots of commitment to innovation as well. And definitely something to keep in mind is to prioritize students' future over, the needs of the tradition. Because at the end of the day, student choice and student voice is what really, really matters. And this change will definitely require collaboration amongst educators, policymakers as well. And at the end of the day, like Mr. Travis mentioned in his keynote, that teacher burnout is, like, teaching is the number one profession in terms of burnout, which is simply sad. I mean, it's the saddest thing ever. And definitely we need more support for teachers, so that they can facilitate better things for our students. And definitely students must prepare for a complex and fast-paced world. And we can start small by chasing excellence over success. And this is a quote from one of the cult classics from an Indian movie called Three Idiots, which is about three engineering students, something that I really resonate with. So if you haven't watched that movie, it's a big movie recommendation. Do go and watch it. It talks a lot about the education system and how people, prioritize rote memorization to just reach where you are. And if you actually prioritize excellence, success would, come automatically. So definitely starting small and demonstrating success, we can definitely, build the momentum which is needed for this transformation. Quality over quantity and education over training. Always one thing to remember, that you need to be educated to educate. So that's how I'd like to close it out, to be the change that you wish to see in the world.
Well, Samar, you did a great job closing out our panel, and be the change you wish to see in the world for sure. We are going to shift the conversation now to some breakout rooms for you to have some time to kind of process all the things you heard Travis say, all the things you heard our speakers say. And before we do that, I just want to give a huge thank you to all of our speakers today, being courageous enough to share your insights, your perspectives, and being willing to push each other in discourse. This is what it's going to take to really come together and innovate and change education. This is what this human intelligence community is all about. So again, a shout out to all of our panelists today, and thank you so much to our students who were courageous enough to come on the panel and really give us their perspective and tell us, kind of elevate that student voice. So thank you, thank you. So we're going to move into breakout rooms. And here's what, when you get into a breakout room, please introduce yourself to the other people. It's an opportunity to get to know a couple of new faces. And then we really want you to think about, so far today, what points do you agree with? What stood out as new or exciting? What maybe do you disagree with and why? How would you approach it differently? And how would you plan to apply what you've learned so far today? Now, this is not the end. We have one more fabulous keynote speaker. Dr. Saba Kidwai will be sharing with us her perspective on agency in the world of AI. So after this think tank panel, we'll hear from Dr. Saba Kidwai. And so make sure that you stick around for that. So Brooke, I think we're ready to head to our breakout rooms. We're going to be there till 3:15. So 3:15, well, if you're in the central time zone, 3:15, you're going to come back. So it looks like, did breakout rooms go, or do we just have people left because they maybe didn't take the breakout room? Sharing those ideas to really drive real change. Well, as we round out our day together today, I am thrilled to introduce Dr. Saba Kidwai to you. She is here with us as the CEO of Designing Schools. She's an author and an educational futurist, and I am so excited to hear her speak today. I've gotten to know Saba over the last several months, and she has become a dear friend of mine, and also brings just some really innovative ideas to this space. And today she's going to really help us think about, how do we spark our human advantage? So Saba, welcome. We are excited to hear from you.
Hi, everyone. How are you? I literally feel like I'm hanging out with all my friends. I was like looking through the list of everybody who's here, and I'm just like, this is so fantastic. I am very, very excited to be here. I am presenting in Canva for the first time versus Keynote. So pardon a little bit of the visual here. But I'm so excited to be here, especially just, no, like I said, I really feel like I'm talking amongst friends. So really consider this a conversation. I think just with everything we saw happen this week, when I looked at, like regardless of where you fall on a political spectrum, the one thing we can agree on is the role and importance of education. And what happens when a lot of people don't get the education they need to have the skills and build a life of dignity and prosperity and just, respect it is that they hope for, as citizens of a country. So if there's one thing I really took away from this week that I really want to, I think, just really share the urgency of, is the importance and role that education plays in preserving and protecting a democracy. And so as I thought about like, what is the number one thing we could really benefit from, and knowing the people that I am speaking to in this room who value human intelligence, who value human dignity, I wanted to really share something super tangible that we could take away to start doing this work, because there, I feel like, are just so many reports that are coming one after one after one about the lack of education people have when it comes to AI, the lack of exposure that people have when it comes to AI. And so this is really like, if you want to move people from where they are to where they need to go, hopefully this is something that will really be able to help. And the entire theme of this is to really begin helping people not think so much about AI tools as individual, like just another technology. Like I actually now realize like how many people say like, it's just like the calculator, it's just like this, and it's not. You know, this is not just the next calculator. This is an entity that can make decisions. This is an entity that can set its own goals. This is an entity that has agency and that has autonomy very much in the same way that people do. And I think this is a very big misunderstanding and why it's so important to amplify human intelligence, that this is just not your next calculator over here. And so one of the things I want to kind of talk about today, and really I hope these are questions that you are able to take and pose to the groups that you work with, is what happens in a world when machines can act and think like humans? And I feel like this is very sensitive for a lot of people. And, you know, if like many of you I know are deep into the AI space, and you're listening to the researchers and scientists who sit in their, offices and labs debating the ins and outs of this question, in the day-to-day reality for majority of people, AI tools don't need to be super intelligent to be a threat. Right? Like if you're a Nobel Peace Prize winning, individual who's been doing this research for many years, you may just be in a little league of your own, right? When it comes to like what you're able to do and what your capabilities are. But for many of the day-to-day people, they don't have those skill sets and they are not Nobel Peace Prize winners. And the current even state of AI tools are very much, I think, a threat to people in many, many, many ways, if we do not begin to amplify human intelligence as a skill set, a mindset that we prioritize. And so I really wanted to just kind of start the conversation, because I think this is a very important visual to share with as many people as you can for amplifying this urgency around this idea that I think way too many people in education plan for, think about, and design for only level 1. And right now, and I know many of you are familiar, I see so many of you post these different things and whatnot, many of the AI tools really hover now between 2 and 3. And, if you go on the OpenAI blog post, when they announced the O1 model, when they asked them, like, how is it now that it's getting better at its capabilities and its ability to, think through problems, or the answers that it's giving, which we know there's mistakes all the time, right? Just like people, there are mistakes that are made. But there's no doubt that its capabilities and what it's able to do, not just inside ChatGPT, but when we see advancements that are coming with HeyGen and all of these other tools. And we'll perhaps find a way to maybe add some links, but if you're not seeing the, different sort of updates that came from Claude, where your computer can take over your screen and take actions on your behalf, or HeyGen, I know, Jason, we had a big debate online about the role of, what is it like when your avatar attends things and does things? And in this current moment, it can seem very foreign. Well, I would never have an AI avatar attend a meeting. But at the end of the day, we serve kids. And one of the hardest things I think for us is balancing what's happening now in the moment and learning and helping people understand that, while also thinking, wait a minute, what do we need to be thinking about skill-wise, mindset-wise, protection-wise for kids who are 5, 10, 15, who are going to grow up in a world where this technology will be incredibly advanced. So the reason we see some of these advancements happening in tools like HeyGen and other ones is AI tools really now hover in between 2 and 3. And the prediction is, by Ray Kurzweil, who's done a pretty good job of predicting other things. This is not me. By 2029, we will have AI tools that hover around 5. And I think this is like, again, when I go back and I look at like I'll give you a really good example. Common Sense Media put out, after the suicide and things like that, the importance of talking to your kids about AI companions and how they're different from chatbots. And they're really not. Chatbots and being a companion that's what Microsoft calls Copilot. So being really intentional about the language we choose and the information we give out to people, I think is so, so, so important, because one of the things, it was actually really interesting, you had this teenage suicide happen over here, and you had people saying like talking to your AI tools is bad, 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 in that sense for like your social, emotional, mental health. But after the election, I saw the number of posts I saw from AI people saying, if you don't have anyone to talk to around you, ChatGPT is an amazing, place where you can go to talk about XYZ. So there was a lot of mixed messaging coming to people in so many different ways that being able to, like I said, help people be more proactive, I think a little bit faster than what we're seeing is just an urgency I think many of us cannot stress enough. So how do we begin to do this? One of the ways in which we like to talk about this to people is by telling them how they can begin to have an AI mindset. It is impossible for people to know what they can do with every single tool and how it can solve and help in all these different ways. And people in education are very familiar with the first two, right? We love fixed and growth mindset. We talk about it all the time. Fixed mindset in this case is like, I'm not sure what I can create. I'm just a teacher, like not an entrepreneur. I can't do anything, right? A growth mindset says though, well, maybe I'm not an entrepreneur, but with guidance, I can learn how to turn my strengths into some kind of opportunity. An AI mindset says, I am going to use AI to be able to figure this out and create and do all the things it is I might need. And you can take this and you can apply it literally to any single scenario. This could also be fixed mindset. Education's a disaster. It's been broken for so many years. There's no one coming to fix it. A growth mindset says, yeah, sure, it is broken, but maybe we can do something about it, right? But the problem with the growth mindset, the person has hope. They know and believe something is possible, but they don't have the tools or resources often to actually take those next steps. And that to me is the biggest role that AI tools can play. I really liked this report from Common Sense Media where they really broke down how students are thinking about these tools. And they said that 70% of teens say they've used at least one, although I think this is a very, very conservative estimate. I'm pretty sure it's like way, way, way more. But what I think was perhaps worse was that 60% said their school has no rules for how generative AI can be used, or they're not even sure if there are rules. So this is another thing I would really encourage you to talk to people about, is the difference between just slapping together a policy to say like you've got something that is very much a list of do's and don'ts, which is something we see everywhere. Traffic light model, red, you can use it. This is very, 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 this is not how we make decisions about life. And this is not how we teach other people to make decisions either. It's really important that people understand their guidelines are a communication strategy. This is a document for us to talk about, to actualize, to have discussions over. We actually are working with somebody and they sent over such a great, as part of their policy document, they had created scenarios for different groups, how to think about applications of the policy using different scenarios. And one of the reasons we struggle to do this, this is from the Microsoft Work Trend Index in 2023, we don't have time, right? Like the reality is it's not that we couldn't do these things. It's not that we don't believe this matters. We don't have time. And Microsoft really bring it down to like 3 areas. They say the way we collaborate is just really broken. They say we have too much, I really like this term, digital debt, that people just don't have enough time because there's a notification coming your way, a Zoom meeting coming your way. You're hopping between all the different ones and you just don't have time to get into a deep flow state, to think about things, to talk about things. Forget doing it for yourself, let alone the other people around you. And then last but not least, a communication breakdown. Like between email, Slack, and all these different things that we have going. Sometimes we're virtual, we're hybrid, we're all these different things. It can be hard for people to really just have that time together. And obviously, the biggest culprit in all of this is meetings, right? It's so funny in this chart when they define this, it's meeting doesn't just come up once, it actually comes up twice. So not only do we have too many meetings, but those meetings are also all really inefficient. And so this is just very much gives you like a lay of the land. And so if you're familiar, you've seen any of my work, you know that we often share the Spark prompting framework. And what's very unique about Spark compared to other models is this works with or without your AI tool. This is not designed to be like, how do I get the best answer out of ChatGPT? This is designed to amplify your human intelligence. Spark is designed to say, what do I want? What are my hopes and goals? What are my aspirations? And with that clarity, you are now in a more, you have more agency and autonomy over how you are going to direct your AI tool versus falling into what we often see, that substitution trap. Well, I was writing the essay here, give me an essay here. I'm doing the lesson plan here, give me the lesson plan here. Spark encourages you to take a moment with another person or a group of people to actually talk through what is your current situation and context, right? Like what's going on? What are some of the problems or barriers you're facing? We always recommend doing one at a time because there's many, many, many that we know exist in our scenario. Aspiration is what is your desired outcome or vision for success? And then results, like what do you hope to achieve? And the last one is meant to invoke serendipity. We're not asking for an answer. We're just saying, hey, like a coffee shop conversation. I'm talking to you. This is my lay of the land. This is what's going on. What are some 3 to 4 things that can help me get started? And so by not asking for a particular answer, we now open the door to being able to evaluate the responses to decide, actually, yeah, no, that's not really what I'm thinking. I'm kind of thinking more like this over here. But what's very fascinating till this day, the one that people struggle with the most, maybe drop it in chat and take your best guess. Which letter do you think people struggle with the most? Let's see, I see the chat running here, which we'll do Q&A in just a second. But which one do you think people struggle with the most? Oh my God, keep going, keep going. That's so funny. The one people struggle with the most is A. Why do you care about this? And what is your vision for success? Like if everything went really well, what would this look like? And people really struggle. It doesn't take them long though to start imagining and dreaming about what a positive outcome might look like. But this is ironically the one people struggle with the most. So I want to give you something super practical, super tangible to be able to take back. And that is, if we know meetings are such a blocker to collaboration and moving ideas forward and doing the things we want to do, how do we use our AI tools as teammates to help move things a lot faster? And the number one way we do this is by turning meetings into workshops. Now, usually when you go to a meeting, you have like a really boring agenda. Everyone's on a device. Hardly anyone's paying attention. It's literally just the reality of every meeting you go into. We basically are going to use something called visual collaboration using 2 tools, ChatGPT and Canva. So you can also do this with pen and paper, like if you had like whiteboards or Post-it paper for real, you could do that there. But I do want to show you what it looks like in Canva. So when you go into Canva, they actually have a whiteboard feature, and you can come in here and you can choose like, we're going to do design thinking. Okay, so we're going to like solve through this problem. We don't know what the outcome is going to be, but we heard about design thinking and we want to try it. We're going to go grab a template. Okay, let's just pretend there's 4 people in this meeting, and we now have this whiteboard where we can come together and basically make our conversations visible. This is a very big limitation of what happened to us during the pandemic with Zoom. We became very used to linear conversations, but conversations are not linear, right? Like you say something, they say something, and 10 minutes later, there's another connection that's made between something. So whether it's pen and paper, Post-it board, markers, whatever, or a digital whiteboard, when you make your ideas visible, they are agile. You can move them, you can connect them, you can group them. Problem is, this takes a lot of time. So now that we have this this whiteboard, we can kind of ask everybody to put down their ideas about, you know, what is working well maybe right now when we think about integrating AI. what are some big problems we have that we want to deal with. This is whatever focus area you want to choose. You can kind of do this over here. But this isn't anything new, okay? This to me is where it gets really interesting, because one of the hardest things to do is to organize those ideas, put them into themes, categorize them. And now with these tools, we can either, just highlight all the notes and ask the AI tool to sort it by topic, and then it will take all the ideas and it will group them all together within seconds. Usually this is when in a real workshop, I would have called for a break. And during the break, I would have sat and organized everything up for people, but literally now within seconds. So I really want you to imagine yourself in a 60-minute meeting, okay? That maybe first 10 minutes was the discussion. And in a second, our AI tool was able to create this visual for us so we can see the themes in the meeting and now talk about them. And we can decide, okay, you know what? Assessment and evaluation. This is a really big problem. Let's see how we can solve for this. And from here, again, amazing that we have the idea, right? That we want to do something about assessment like everybody does these days. But how are you going to make it turn it into impact, right? Like, how are we actually going to create something we can try and that we can do? This is where Spark comes in, because most people in that moment will be like, okay, give me an assessment for blah, 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 or, defaulting to tools that, just are not at that level that we hope to create things for. But when you ask people before even getting into, let's redesign assessment, okay, let's talk about the situation. Let's talk about the problem. If everything went really well, what would things look like? What kind of results are we hoping for and looking for? And just to give you an example of what this looks like, and I can share this with Michelle, I can share this with you to be able to send out, but let's just take, the English teacher. I honestly think right now the 5-paragraph essay is like the biggest blocker to innovation in this space. So that's why I'm choosing this example. But in this one, I teach 10th grade English, and I'm just really worried about cheating, okay? You'll notice also, these are not essays that we're writing. They're just short, quick sentences. But despite the potential of AI to enhance education outcomes, I'm really struggling to ensure that students engage authentically with assignments. I'd love to redesign my lessons, right? Not just because of cheating, but also because I want to give my kids these like future-ready skills. I would love, as a result, for my kids to showcase their understanding through projects that integrate real-world application. And by the way, our class loves Canva. Do you have 3 to 4 ideas to get me started? And now what we can do, we can take the screenshot, okay? So like over here, if you like, well, I'll show you here. You're gonna see the screenshot of the Post-it notes that we did. So these are our ideas. We're copying and pasting the prompt that I just showed you right over here into ChatGPT. ChatGPT is the best for this. Highly, highly, highly recommend the paid version, which I would also say, if you are working with people, this is another really big challenge. Nobody's paying for the tool. Everywhere we go, people are not paying for the tool. And if you're not paying for the tool, you have no exposure. So I always tell people, if you're not going to pay for the tool, please go to YouTube and spend some time on YouTube so that you have awareness and exposure about what is going on. So what we are doing here, we are copying and pasting this prompt. We are taking a screenshot of our whiteboard and coming into ChatGPT saying, these are the notes we just took. Here's our prompt. And now what it's going to do is give us 3 to 4 ideas. How about doing digital storytelling projects? How about a collaborative research presentation? How about a visual essay or an interactive literature analysis? I might be like, oh my God, I love the idea of a visual essay, right? The teachers still say happy essay. What does a visual essay even look like? And from there, what I can do is continue the conversation. I might like some of the ideas. I might not like some of them. I might be like, oh my God, why don't we do an interactive research paper and make that a visual essay and combine the 2 things together? But you could, again, go back to the timing of the 60-minute meeting. Within this very short time frame, I've literally not just talked about a problem, I've come up with a really tangible solution for what I can do. And it gets even better with Canva, right? Because even that, they're still like, okay, how are we going to start? What are we going to do? What do we need? And you can come to Canva and you can just create like a little action item template. You can just search for it. And here's the action item description, who's responsible, right back to ChatGPT. All right, organize this up for us. How are we going to get started? We want to do this in 2 weeks. Here's the people that are working on this. Got your curriculum coordinator, your PD person, your English teachers. It's telling what each person is responsible for doing. And honestly, like these are the kinds of things that we need to start doing more and more in our organizations to start moving this work forward. Sitting with PDF, long documents that keep coming at us from every organization is not going to help people turn ideas about what we need to do into actual impact that our kids need. But what's even more amazing about Canva, it can literally take this entire board of notes and go to resize and basically turn it into an executive summary document. So if I wanted to send everybody like a follow-up about what we just did, or I need to send my principal an update or my superintendent a note about what we just did, it will literally do all of this for you. And even in this scenario, we are barely scratching the surface of AI tools and their capabilities. We're only really looking right now at ChatGPT and Canva. We love Canva because it's free to education. But this is really sort of, I think, the things that we need to see more and more and more happening in our spaces. And I do have, let's see, hold on, I had the prompt for you. Where did I put it? Give me 1 second. I think it might still be in my, sorry. Okay, yeah, here we go. Okay, I have a Spark prompt. It's a GPT for you. So in this case, people don't even have to make the Spark, like literally the tool will make it for you. But you can literally just go to it and be like, this is the problem we're trying to move forward in our organization right now. And if you come here, literally like, you can just open it up and tell it like, I don't know, does somebody in the chat have like a problem that they might want to try or they might want to share or something you discussed today that you're like, oh my God, I heard this and I would love to go back and implement this idea.
One of the things we talked a lot about, Sabo, in the panel was elevating student voice.
Okay, amazing. So let's say like, and give me a grade level. Oh, I see, look, the problem's coming in. There is no shortage of problems in this world that we need solved. Let's just say for high school students, okay? Because we know with AI how important student agency is, okay? So let's just go ahead and put that in. So basically what this does, it gives people framing. You don't have to agree with the framing it creates, but what we notice happens for people, it's that blank page syndrome. Once they see this, it's like a whole new it's like a whole new human intelligence is like unleashed for them that they didn't even know they could tap into just because they visually now can see something that previously they just didn't have context for. And so as they come in here, they can change this, you know, and it's kind of programmed to always ask questions. Would you like to brainstorm something specific? You know, what aspects are you most interested in highlighting? Literally, it's kind of designed like if I was sitting next to you and we were having this conversation, what are some of the things I might say to you, and things along those lines. I saw a couple of things in the chat that I just want to kind of say, and this is the one that the free version is very good. And this is, there are two different ways to be thinking about these tools. One is my own personal use. What can I do? Okay, great, the tool works for me. But another aspect of it is understanding capability. And I really, really, really cannot stress this enough. People who don't engage in the full range of the tool, even if you don't want to pay for it, like I said, YouTube, they have a very hard time understanding how much this is advancing. And I think this is why more and more in education, we see a lot of people just stuck in this chatbot mode, or people will be like, chatbots are going away. You don't need prompting anymore. And this is a really big goal of why we created Spark. Prompting will go away because your AI tools are going to become more smarter at making decisions, making choices, and having agency. Spark is there to always make sure you are the human decision maker leading this AI team, right? Like now when people think about org charts, you don't just have people anymore on your org charts. Your AI tools are going to be scattered in all over. And it goes back to that question, right? In the beginning, what happens in a world where machines and humans can both think and learn? And I don't think I said this earlier because I know it's very sensitive when we use these words. And I realized in many ways, we are very much victims of the industrial model of school, even as innovative as, you know, we might be. But there's a lot of people that think there's only one way to think. There's only one way to care. There's only one way to learn. These words mean very different things in, you know, the human world and the machine learning world. but they both have very similar goals. And I think that's a really important thing to begin thinking about, because without that human agency and without that human intelligence, social media is the perfect example. Social media is autonomous AI, right? Like we talked a lot about like Yuval's latest book, Nexus, where he talks about the role of social media. Like there's a reason people are stuck doom scrolling. You don't have agency over your social media. You can't make that decision to put it down because it's stronger than you are. And you see today how vulnerable we are to those environments when the only solution we can seem to come up with is to ban tools, right? And we're not going to be able to sort of ban our way out of AI when it's integrated into all these different spaces. And so the book is the book is actually out in Kindle version, but the paperback won't be out for another 2 weeks. But really the big goal for all of us to begin thinking about, how do we become irreplaceable in an AI world? And it truly is through being able to amplify our human intelligence.
Thank you so much for sharing your message today, Saba, and also giving us some tools to try and some things to think about. So let's give it up for Saba in the chat. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much.
Well, everyone, it has been a phenomenal day today. Whether it was really hearing from Travis around the rallying cry for the human intelligence movement, to the think tank panel where we had some diverse perspectives and got to hear real thoughts from our students, to this closing keynote, really thinking about how do we tap into our human spark for our human potential. So here's what I'm looking for all of you now to weigh in around your learning. So I've got a prompt for you. I'm inspired to take action on because, a little bit of a framework. I'd like everyone to go ahead and put into the chat your answer to this idea. I'm inspired to take action on because. Go ahead. Lots of fabulous ideas coming through the chat. Please be sure to connect with individuals that their thinking is resonating with you. This part of our community is networking and learning from each other. As we really think about the human intelligence movement, our focus is, as you know, on awareness, community, and advocacy. And we invite you to take this prompt, this idea, and share it with others. Social media has become a great platform for us to really get the message out around the human intelligence movement. So it would be amazing if you could take your idea of I'm inspired to take action on because, and post it to Instagram, post it to LinkedIn, post it on whatever social media you actively use, and really tag the human intelligence movement. And let's get this conversation going outside of just this Zoom room today. That's what it's going to take, our collective coming together to really advocate for change in this space. And so please, if you would take a moment to share your message with the world, that would be amazing. I'm going to start to wrap us up and close out our day together today. And first, really just invite all of you to join the Human Intelligence Movement. And there are a couple of ways that you can do that. If you are new to the movement and haven't joined, please go to our website and become a member. Lots of experience, lots of exclusive learning events that we have, excuse me, professional development and networking, the opportunity to really influence policy. We have exclusive resources right around the corner. Our research team is working on lots of powerful information that's available just to our members, and recognition as a thought leader in this space. So please become a member. If you're new to the Human Intelligence Movement, we invite you to do that. If you already are a founding member, please visit our website and consider making a membership pledge, a donation to this organization. As we continue to grow and evolve, having that funding to be able to do amazing things is something that we are seeking. And part of what you can do is become a founding partner as well. If you are a corporation or an industry, a school district that would like to be a lifetime founding partner to help us really shape the direction of this movement, we're looking for you to join us as well. Go ahead and go to the website to find more information. And if you have questions about either membership or being a founding partner, you can reach out to us and we're happy to answer those questions for you. Some things to mark your calendar for is exclusive member events just around the corner. We've got some events coming up. Probably going to need your help, Brooke, here with advancing the slides. So one of the member events, we're excited about our first event happening later this month. It's our professional development session where we are going to look at the portrait of a digitally integrated human, HI and AI human. So join us for this 1 hour special event. We'll be featuring a professional development session each month around a special topic. And we encourage you to come and obtain clock hours and professional development certificate from that event. We also host a monthly member mingle. If you like to network, meet new people, and learn from one another, the member mingle is the place for you to be. Our next one is coming up December 3rd. And then just mark your calendars for our December professional development session with Dr. Shannon Terry. One of our executive board members will be sharing with us about adaptability and what that means in an AI world. So mark your calendar for those events. And as a member, you'll be able to register on our website for each of those events. So check out our Human Intelligence website as well. Finally, as we start to close things out for today, I want to make sure that you have tomorrow on your calendar. This kickoff, this virtual summit is a 2-day event. And tomorrow we will be meeting from 9 a.m. to 12 Pacific time. And our day tomorrow will look a little bit different than today. We'll launch the day with a keynote with Dr. Courtney Teague. And Courtney will really be helping us think about how can we leverage the power of AI to boost our human intelligence. And then we will move into something we're calling the thought exchange. And the thought exchange is an opportunity for we have, I think, 30 breakout sessions with thought leaders coming together to really share their ideas, their innovations, and their practices. And you'll have an opportunity to choose 3 sessions to attend tomorrow. And so we're giving you this bit.ly link. We'll put it in the chat for you to really take a moment to explore the different sessions that you have as options tomorrow, and think about how do you want to plan your day. So the sessions tomorrow will not be recorded. The thought exchange sessions, our keynote sessions are recorded, but the thought exchange is less of a presentation and more of sharing ideas and building on one another. So please, I hope that you'll all join us for tomorrow's event from 9 to 12 Pacific time. And did we get that? Yep, we got the link in the chat. So go ahead and grab that so you can look at what we're calling our menu so that you can can pick out what you want to learn tomorrow. So Brooke, you want to go ahead and stop sharing screen, and I just want to give thank everyone for joining us today. It was an amazing day to come together as the Human Intelligence Movement to really launch this movement and start something amazing. Travis, anything you want to say to close us out?
Just one final thought. My dad has always told me you are the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with. It's an absolute privilege and honor to be in a room with like-minded people like yourselves. I think we're only better together, coming as a community. I realized a long time ago that the system is not going to change from any individual. It is going to take the entire community to rise up. And so very excited to have all of you as part of this journey, part of this movement, and super excited about the event tomorrow.
Thanks everyone for being here. Thanks for our speakers today. And thanks everyone that put this event together. So we will see you tomorrow.